Hi everyone, nice to connect with the CEMS community. As you heard, CEMS was, or CEMS Alumni Association was created in '93, which is actually the year I graduated. May sound very far away for some of you, 25 years out or 25 years back for me. But actually my campus life still feels very present in my day-to-day. I'll come back to this title that I put here, 88,000 hours, but keep that in mind if you don't know, that's actually your working time at your disposal to make a difference in the world, or basically your career time. When you translate it into number of hours, it doesn't sound that big, I believe. So really think hard each hour, how are you going to spend it and why? Going back to my CEMS years, so I entered at, I should say, probably a bit too young. I was only 18 when I entered the school and wasn't ready to actually work on accounting and statistics. So I rather enjoyed myself and took every opportunity to go around the world. I hoped we could have had a more interactive discussion and wish I could put the test to you. Do you recognize all the cities? But unless you want to type very quickly in the chat box, I'm just going to name them one after the other. I was able, between actually my first and second year, to do a program that unfortunately has been discontinued since, but which allowed future managers to study sciences so that they would understand and be able to interact with scientific leaders in companies. So I spent a year in Chicago actually working on genetic engineering. And this was the very early days of genetic manipulation. And I considered that I couldn't have a real thinking about what are the ethical consequences of genetic manipulation without having actually worked on the bench, which I did, enjoyed, but also concluded that I was not meant to be a scientist. Second real year of HEC, came back, actually didn't like it that much on campus and wanted to go and travel the world again. Went to Singapore, was able to do a 6-month internship with the then French Ministry of Finance and Economics, working mostly on macroeconomical studies in the ASEAN region, a region that was already in full boom. And while in Europe, it felt rather like crisis mode. You had you know, the difficult 70s and the also tough mergers and acquisition in the 80s and 90s. And there in Singapore, you had people who were poor compared to the living standards in Europe, but they knew that the future would be better for themselves and their children. So there was such an energy and drive, that was a positiveness in the atmosphere that was amazing. And I did my last year as part of the International Program of Management, one semester in New York at New York University in the MBA of Stern, and the last semester as part of CEMS in Italy at the Bocconi. To be really honest, I guess I worked a lot on what is now called, you know, cultural intelligence and emotional intelligence, much more than anything else. And I wouldn't have minded going on with studies, but I sort of had a family message coming down to me saying you need to, you know, sustain yourself and find a job. It seems you're enjoying yourself a bit too much as a student. So I went and looked for a job and hesitated between a startup around a high-tech product that would necessarily be international, or what actually became really my professional school, strategic consulting. And I was lucky enough to join McKinsey in the Paris office as a junior consultant at the time. And I probably there learned an ethics of work and skills and competencies that I'm still using today in my daily life. Very much analytical skills, problem-solving skills, but also how to learn how to work in teams, how to be very open to feedback and to providing feedback, growing oneself as well as taking responsibility for growing the others in the team, and the clients being totally client-focused, daring to speak up when you disagree, going for sharpness in your thinking and your delivery. I mean, great competencies that I think are very needed in the workplace. Now, in terms of defining moment, as I mentioned earlier, these were really years of mergers and acquisitions. And that means from a corporate perspective that you try then to reduce the fixed costs of your company, which if you translate that into human terms, that means closing production lines, or if possible, closing entire plants and laying off people, which came a bit as a shock to me. And if I use a cartoon, it would really be this. As Yuri actually said earlier, you know, the stakeholders and shareholders can make a huge difference. But I think in a couple of years' time, we will be talking about our generation, and I'm certainly not proud of that, as the generation that, you know, says, yes, the planet got destroyed, but for a beautiful moment in time, we create a lot of value for shareholders. Well, I'm wondering if here we don't get something wrong, and if actually MBAs around the world are not getting something wrong. We are certainly, and we all know that, reaching the limits of our planet. We are eating up, as you probably know, more resources than the planet can produce on a yearly basis. That famous cutoff date where we have consumed more of the resources of the planet than it can reproduce is now somewhere in the middle of August. So nearly, you know, half a year into a year, we are already running into deficit compared to what the planet can produce. And for me, there was really a wake-up moment where I said, I want to use my 88,000 hours or my time to help make the world a better place. So in brief, my professional path, and while I appreciate the thinking, you know, first for your personal vision and your career, actually, I'm not sure I had a career. I had a series of opportunities, and I moved around. I worked for the nonprofit sector as well as for the corporate sector. I work very much across sectors. Here you see KEO was a collective art project that I led out of Paris for a couple of years with huge company partnerships. And I came to Geneva to work for the International Federation of Red Crescent and Red Cross and Red Crescent Society, which is an organization present literally around the world. Then back to consulting with FSG, which is very focused on corporate social responsibility. We can come back to that, the notion of shared value. How as a business can you positively impact society as well as strategic leadership? In parallel, I was involved, my presentation just disappeared. I don't know if you can still see it. In parallel, I was involved with a nonprofit active in conflict mediation, the Center for Humanitarian Dialogue, where you literally try to bring people around a negotiation table. Think of Colombia, for example. Nowadays, the FARC process, after decades of war, is finally coming to a positive resolve. But just think of the drama in that society and the missed opportunity for so many people. So it's really about accelerating that. And then I jumped, but it happened fortuitively, and maybe a message here, please be open and remain open to opportunities and to encounters that may thrill you. So then I joined the bank, Lombard-Odier, headed both the foundation of the partners of the bank, as well as developed philanthropic advisory services like VTK mentioned, and recently jumped out to set up myself as an independent. Basically, my career choices, or let's say professional choices, are based on a couple of simple criteria. I want to be able to have a positive impact in the world. I want to be aligned with, and I need literally to be aligned with the values of the people I work with and I work for. And when that is not possible anymore, then it's time to move out. I want to make sure that I can still learn on the job. And there is this fabulous quote that I came across one day that I want to share with you. The 21st century illiterates will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. So while your student time is a fabulous time, and please do enjoy it, also think that learning is going to be part of your life throughout the future. And so in a nutshell, my job today, which is still only few, I would say, privileged people around the world are doing this job and can live of it, is called philanthropy advisor. So I basically help families and funders, people with wealth who have their heart at the right place, if I may say, who want to contribute to the future. Someone is playing with my slides. Who want to contribute to the future, help them identify where they want to give, how they go about it, and how to have a sustainable impact. And final slide, this is really for you, and happy to discuss it with examples. a recent study about what companies will be looking for, are already looking for in terms of skill set, and will be looking for more and more in their recruits in the future, are these 4 words: cultural intelligence and emotional intelligence, and strategic coping and problem solving. So both, how can you interact with people of different background, mindsets, cultural beliefs, and how can you work harmoniously and confidently with them, as well as when faced with a situation, how do you know how to cope with it, and your capability to react. So very much on, let's say, the soft skills side, which doesn't mean that you shouldn't build hard skills for yourself, but remaining agile, nimble, learning, and having this quest as part of yourself is going to be extremely important. And my question to you, but happy to debate it. Hopefully we can have your question and hear them. What will you personally do with your 88,000 hours at your disposal in your professional life?